So I'm going to talk about mobile apps this afternoon because I haven't been here all day, but I have been here for the afternoon, and I've heard a lot about security and management, and they're really good and important topics. But I want to take it on a step because for me, the great thing about mobility is the fact that I think it's the biggest opportunity in 30 years to use technology to transform the way business is done for the better. And that's why it's such an exciting area. And things like security and management are very important because they lay the foundations for us to be able to then go ahead and run applications in the field with our mobile users. And what IT has done for 40, 50 years in business is take existing processes and use the technology to automate them, run them faster, better at a lower cost, and improve the way business is done as a result. And mobile technology can do exactly the same thing if we put it in the hands of people who are mobile, right, out of the office, people who are moving around, to use Andreas's definition from his 1974 dictionary. So that's why I think mobility is so exciting, is it's because we have a real chance to change business for the better. And coincidentally, where's my clicker? Here's my clicker. Oh, it says next and back, so I think I can work that. Okay. Coinciding with the rise in mobile technology for me is the fact that business itself has really changed in the last 20 years. Changed to the point where the companies who are going to win business with their customers are those who are going to be out in front of them. There was a time, I'm just about old enough to remember a time when if you were a company and you were selling to a customer, they would come to your office for a business meeting. That never happens anymore. You've got to go out to see them. And it's not just in normal businesses either. I mean, banking is a great example. There was a time where we all used to go to the bank branch to get bank business done. And it started to change, really because they wanted to cut costs more than anything, but they put cash machines outside the bank. And now we would go to the branch, but we wouldn't have to go in anymore. And we could go 24 hours a day, so that was nice. But now, when was the last time anybody ever went to a branch to do their banking, right? The bank has come to you. And generally in business, it's those organisations who can go and meet their customers, meet their needs in front of them who are really winning the business. And so the first point I put up there is about businesses conducted in front of the customer and no longer in the office. And that's been a change over the last 20 years. And mobile workers, therefore, are at the front line. Salespeople, well, their job is to generate revenue. Field engineering or customer service people, their job is to look after the customer. And mobility can help them generate more revenue or do it at a lower cost or deliver much better customer service, all of which is going to be instrumental in terms of winning business going forward. So unlike new IT systems going at headquarters, which are obviously always important, they're probably incremental improvements over what went before. But if you've got a new system going in the mobile field that's never been there before, it has the chance to potentially make a much bigger difference to the business's bottom line than systems at headquarters. So that's, for me, why mobility is so important. And in terms of where those processes are, which are the ones that are really making a difference? Well, it's different in every organisation, but one thing that we do find that's common is processes that involve the movement of information between groups of people in different places, particularly where it touches large numbers of people. Those are the ones that can deliver some really quick wins, particularly paper-based processes, paper forms. We did a project with a healthcare provider last year where they have 3,000 people who provide care to hospital patients who've come out of hospital and are now at home. And to free up the beds in hospitals, what's important for them is that they can change their dressings or change their clothes or bathe them or whatever at home, and they go and deliver those services. But what they were doing up until very recently is using a paper-based form with a clipboard and a pen. And they would make typically 15 visits a day. There were 3,000 of them. That's an awful lot of paper that then needs to be collected back, put in an envelope, posted to headquarters, where there's a team of people whose job it is to rip those envelopes open, key that information into a central system, and then be able to report back. Being able to automate that process, turn it into an electronic form, and deliver that information virtually real time has delivered huge savings for the way that business works. So paper-based processes that touch lots of people and lots of touch points, are the ones that can potentially make the greatest difference early on for organisations who are going mobile. And of course that's different in every different business. But when it comes to building mobile apps, particularly in the enterprise, what we're looking to do is enhance the way processes work, use the technology to automate the processes and make them much more effective. And there might be really good reasons for the business why you're doing this. But the whole point of my presentation is to make the case that there have to be really good reasons for the user to want to make that change as well. Because I think there needs to be a really good answer to the question the user will pose, which is what's in it for me? There might be great reasons for the organisation, but if there isn't something in it for the user, there's every danger that they'll go back to working the way they used to work. If you're going to ask a user to change the way they've worked and then move from, let's say, a paper-based form with a pen and a clipboard to a mobile device and an electronic data capture, unless that new system or process is easier, faster, simpler, better than the way they worked before, they'll go back to working the way they worked before. And then you'll have two processes to support, and then you're not going to get the benefit of this mobility deployment with that organisation of users. So it's really important to get the users to buy in, and I think a big part of that is a focus when building mobile apps on usability. User interface is one aspect of that, but the overall user experience is really, really important. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges when it comes to building mobile applications, is making sure that user experience is right. Because as I say, if you don't get it right, then users will go back to working the way they worked before, and the system could be deemed a failure. So there are a number of challenges that enterprises face when it comes to building mobile applications. There's integration with existing systems. There's how you manage and secure the data. We've heard a lot about that today, I think. And where you start. And our view is always, my view is very much that, start small, focus on a process that if you can automate it is going to make the biggest difference to your business very quickly. Start with one thing, do it really well, build some success and confidence, and iterate out from there. Take it from there and make it better. And address this what's in it for me question. There are two types of applications that we generally see enterprises building when it comes to mobile apps: business to employee applications and business to consumer applications. So business to consumer, those types of apps that go on the App Store, that consumers are going to download and transact with you potentially. They're often driven by marketing departments. The branding, the product is going to be really important there. The business to employee side, there might be some data security issues. You might need to have those run on across different platforms because there is no single dominant standard in the mobile space like there is in the desktop space. You've got connectivity to back-end systems and security and all those kinds of things that you've got to worry about. So potentially there are different sets of challenges for both of those kinds of applications. But in both cases, I think design is what really drives adoption. And I think great design is the answer to the what's in it for me question. Because if you can make, through great design, a mobile app work better than the existing process that the users had to work with in the past, I think that's the way that we can get these apps adopted and really get them to start making a difference for the business. The challenge we have in the enterprise, of course, is that consumer apps have really set the bar pretty high. It'd be interesting to find out what devices you've all got, actually. So maybe we can do a show of hands. I always like doing this. So, so how many people have an Android device? Quick show of hands, please. Okay, about half of you. How many people have an iOS device, an Apple device? Oh, you've got two, right? Okay. How many people have a BlackBerry? No one. Okay. And how many people have a Windows phone device? Okay. How many people have more than one? I know you do. Okay. Half the room. Isn't that amazing, right? There used to be a time where technology came into the enterprise first, but now consumer technology is really overtaken and the enterprise is kind of catching up. And I think of the kind of app designs that you see on the App Store for some of the really cool apps. I think of that as our 21st century user interface, where you can tap and swipe and move things. The problem is an awful lot of enterprise applications have a 20th century user interface. And it's really important that enterprises not only catch up to consumer interfaces, but overtake them. Why? Because in the consumer space, I saw a stat from Facebook recently that said they were boasting about the fact that more than 50% of their users now used Facebook through the mobile app instead of through the website. And just yesterday, there was a story about Google changing the way they deliver search results, because now more than 50% of people get their search results on their mobile device than they do through the browser on their desktop device. And that's really interesting. But if you're Facebook or Google, and let's say you've got 50-50 mobile and desktop, in an enterprise, when you're changing a process, you can't afford to have 50% of people using the old process and 50% using the new. You've got to have 100% user adoption for that application really to work. So it's even more important in the enterprise space that we get the design right and we get the user experience right, because we want 100% of our users to move to the new process. 50% isn't good enough. So consumer apps have raised the bar pretty high. Enterprise apps, for me, need to go that much better. So it's not enough to focus on the functionality anymore. You've got to focus on the functionality and you've got to focus on the usability and the user experience, because otherwise users might simply choose not to use your mobile app, and all the money that you've spent and invested in getting it developed could be wasted. So designers think a lot about user interface, but user interface is one element that ultimately delivers the overall user experience. And I was at a conference a few months ago, actually, and there was a colleague of mine from O2 up on the stage, and he told a story about a friend of his who found a rugged mobile device in the gutter covered in leaves and dirt and all this horrible stuff. And he picks it up and he took it home and he washed it off and dusted it down. And on the back, there was a little flap, and underneath was a SIM card and a telephone number. And so he thought, I'll give the phone number a call, see who I get. And he called it, and he got through to an engineering manager of a local company who had 50 engineers out with these mobile devices. And he said, I found one of your devices. It was in the gutter under some leaves, covered in dirt and so on. Would you like me to return it? And the engineering manager said, thanks ever so much for calling. I get a couple of these calls every week because our engineers somehow accidentally on purpose drop their devices in gutters and let them get covered in leaves and dirt and grime. And it's just such a good example of users will do anything possible to avoid using a system if they don't like it. And when I started in mobility, it was quite a long time ago, what I saw back then was lots of devices in drawers that never got charged. That was the excuse, the battery's gone on this device, I can't charge it. It's because they didn't want to use it and they never charged it, and it just spent its life in a drawer. So it's really, really important that when it comes to apps, enterprise apps that automate business processes, that we get the design right. So I think as well as thinking about functionality, we've got to think about a design-led approach to enterprise mobile apps to really get them in the hands of users working the way they're supposed to. So these are my 5 principles for great, brilliant design, in fact. Okay. The first one is understand your target market and design only for that market and not for anybody else. Don't design it for your management. Don't design it for anybody, all the other stakeholders. Concentrate on who your users are. Build and design the app just for them and not for anybody else. There's a terrible tendency in business to design by committee and design by big meetings, and it really doesn't work. You've really got to focus in on what the users need. Second one is make the app simple and intuitive, even if that means losing features. In fact, I would suggest start with as few features as you possibly can. Build some confidence in your users and take it from there. Start to iterate and improve it that way. Third one is strive to deliver seamless continuity from one platform to the next. Now that could mean a web platform to a mobile platform. That could mean a mobile smartphone or a tablet, or it could mean one brand of smartphone to another brand of smartphone. But wherever you go to use that application, continuity has to be really important. Your brand and the way your users perceive your brand is going to be judged by that. And so it's really important to have that seamless continuity and consistency, which is the next point. You've got to try and create an experience that's consistent across your range of different devices and products, because that's how your company, your brand, your whole project will be judged. And finally, marry consumer and enterprise approaches. Think about the consumer focus on the product and the beauty of the user interface and the design, and the enterprise focus on attention to detail, process, and connectivity to back-end systems and all the other problems that you have to solve. So there you go. Those are my 5 core principles for brilliant design. So I only had 15 minutes, so I'm almost done. This is my final slide. Mobile apps are really exciting because they deliver bottom line improvements to the business that can deliver increased revenue, lower costs, and better service. Things that make a real impact to the bottom line. Device management and security are very important, and they are pieces that need to be implemented in order to make this possible. But in themselves, they don't actually deliver a return. There are costs that you have to bear in order to play the game. So the real returns from mobility are going to come through automating business processes. That comes through mobile apps that you put in the hands of your users. And that will only work if users buy in to any new system that you're putting in. So user buy-in is absolutely critical. Enterprise apps need to have a higher level of adoption than consumer apps. 50-50 is not good enough. It needs to be 100%. We need to strive for 100%. And designing user experience is fundamental to that success. So that's me. Just one slide on who Globo are in case you've never heard of us. I wouldn't be surprised if you hadn't. We're an enterprise mobility vendor like some of the ones that you've heard here. We focus in these 3 areas. And while we do security and device management, and those are important, it's actually mobile apps where we kind of tend to spend most of our time because that's what delivers the real return. So thanks very much.